Is Avowed being judged unfairly? That is the question. Yes, I am aware this is an unpopular opinion. Most people are saying it's mid, or they're just saying it's not good at all. But I really want to talk about this today because I just feel like this is not sitting right with me, so I have to say something. If you're new to the channel, I am Ryofu, and this is the Gaming Harbinger. We talk about gaming news, anime news. We also do reviews. We also cover anime conventions. If any of that sounds remotely intriguing, please consider subscribing. Now let's see if we can come to an understanding why Avowed is getting such a mixed reaction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. When this game was first announced in 2020, I was very curious about it. I did admittedly think of it as an Elder Scrolls placeholder, I'm not gonna lie. And that is a compliment, by the way, not an insult. Now, I knew based off of Outer Worlds, another Obsidian game, it would be a smaller title. I knew it would be a 38-ish hour experience and not a 100-hour experience, but the idea of a first-person fantasy game by Obsidian got me excited. And would you believe me if I told you, I started playing the game, and guess what? Nothing happened. I waited for all the quote-unquote bad things to reveal themselves, and that time never came. I waited to cringe at atrocious writing and bad dialogue. That never came. So let's try to break down some of the criticism bit by bit. First, I want to start this off by saying I'm not going to go into the controversy stirred up by art director Matt Hansen. If you guys haven't noticed, I cover news, I do reviews, but I tend to stay away from politics. Now, as far as the politics within a game, I have no problem discussing those. But I will say, if the comments made by Matt Hansen bother you, I understand. However, I do want to provide some commentary to this. I want people to know that a lot of artistic driven fields have a lot of lefties. And it's been like this for a while. They didn't just show up in recent years. I think the reason why politics seems to be cropping up more and more lately is because it's just kind of got immersed into pop culture and because of course, social media. Now, we know how every actor, every celebrity, every athlete feels about every little thing. However, in regards to the past, you may have only heard someone's political leanings only if they were just extremely vocal and passionate about them. So things are different now. So if these things that Matt Hansen said bother you to the point where you're not going to buy the game, that's fine with me. Do your thing. At the same time, if you are a dev for a company, I think you're personally allowed to share your political leanings if that's truly what you want to talk about on your own social platform. However, just understand there may be a price to pay for that. But if you're totally okay with that price, carry on. But anyways, let's get into the stuff that I actually do want to talk about, even though I just talked about it. One of the earliest criticisms I saw was the art style. Let's do this discussion justice. I'm an avid watcher of anime. I play Japanese games with an anime aesthetic. So trust me when I say art style is important to me. Yes, there are some default character faces in Avowed that are horrid, but that doesn't mean every character looks like this. Every character looks unattractive. That is just simply not true. Let's speak candidly. I know you've probably seen a couple of Avowed videos at this point, so I have to keep things interesting for you. So let's just throw this out there right now. I really think some guys are turned off by the color palette. I've heard a few reviewers make little comments, cheeky comments in regards to the colors in the game. And yeah, I don't understand why some men take issue or are so sensitive to colors, but it is what it is. Anyhow, let's get some explanation on why the character you play as, why they look the way they look. So these characters are called godlikes. These are people that have been touched by God when they were born. So for some people, it's a small detail like a leaf or a little mushroom or something that grows on the cheek or by the eyebrow. And others, their whole entire head looks like a mini tree. Now you can choose to hide these features so you as the player don't have to see them, but keep in mind, NPCs will still react to your appearance, whatever you chose when you created your character. Now some people will be intrigued or curious about the way you look, and others are going to be simply terrified. Keep in mind that this is a fantasy medieval game, so it doesn't take much to scare people about a plague or a disease. In fact, there isn't a whole lot of godlikes during these times. And to compound to that, there is a disease going around and many people believe you have it. I found all this fascinating, so much so I decided to go with one of the crazier looks. My female character, she just looks wild. So she has so much stuff on her head that she technically only has one eye. So I thought to myself, if I had one eye, what would I do to cover that area? Well, I found a hairstyle that covers that side of her face, and this would make sense if you were born into these circumstances. Anyways, like you can tell, I totally went balls deep into this. But that's the thing. The lore was already intriguing to me, and it made sense to live and see the struggles of a godlike rather than to just toggle them off and pretend the NPCs are rude to me for no damn reason. I think the next area of criticism has been the writing, which I'm not understanding this one. Now, granted, I haven't finished the game, and I'll be completely honest with that. Maybe I haven't gotten to that part yet, because I'm let's say about 10 hours in. But some people are comparing it to Dragon Age the Veilguard and assuming it's the same situation. I haven't played the newest Dragon Age, and I just got to be honest with that. So I can't say how the writing is in that game. Avowed's writing seemed solid to me. Nothing stood out in a bad way for me. In fact, the lore of the game is from Pillars of Eternity, which is incredible. You can tell that they were incredibly meticulous on the incorporation of the lore, and also the voice acting is solid as well. When I think of bad writing, I think of Mass Effect Andromeda. But, it's not enough to just throw that out there because, if you're familiar with YouTube and social media culture, everybody has the hot takes and they just throw stuff out there. This is trash, this is mid, blah, blah, blah. So let's get specific here. The entire writing in Andromeda isn't terrible. In my opinion, it really falls with how jokes are being told. When a person is trying too hard to be funny, and I mean, we're all guilty of this even as human beings, but that's how the quote-unquote funny parts of Andromeda felt to me. Now, notice I didn't say the entire writing in the game is bad or that even the entire game is horrible. Just these sections where you had to sit through 7 layers of sarcasm or a character constantly throwing snarky quibs. It's just, to me, as the old dude in the room, I guess you could say, it's cringy. And maybe this is a generational thing, perhaps, and I just don't find 7 layers of sarcasm that funny. I just personally see it as this pathetic defense mechanism. But maybe this is the style of humor people love right now. I doubt it. But anyhow, I haven't experienced that type of writing with Avowed. But I will say sometimes video games as well as movies feel the need to have a character that behaves this way. I say if you don't have anything funny or a jokey joke to add, don't worry about it. Just focus on the story. Make it compelling. Make it interesting. Have interesting characters. Not every section needs the yucks. If you try too hard, it just comes off desperate. Now here's one topic that has recently taken off. There is a Skyrim vs. Avowed video going around, and it's baffling. Comparing an Obsidian game to a non-Obsidian game makes no sense to me. I know you are thinking I just referenced it being an Elder Scrolls placeholder, and I'm totally admitting that here. I'm not here to be deceptive, but I never expected a 200-hour experience with real-life interactivity. Yes, it shares the same publisher, but the same team did not develop these two games. I don't even think these two games had the same budget. But let's attempt to engage with this. Yes, it's pretty cool. You can attack a random NPC in Skyrim and then they fight back. But there were times that this just happened by accident and it was not fun to me. And I had to reload to my last checkpoint. And this is not like a huge, massive deal breaker to me. And if I were to be honest with you, I know people aren't going to like me saying this, but same situation. When I see people do stuff like this in Skyrim, when I see people do stuff like this in a Grand Theft Auto game, these are the same people that never finish those games. They just want to like do something wild and crazy and get people fighting them, laugh about it, and then they never come back to the game again. That's what I always see. So I'm just saying these are the same people that never finish games. But anyways, going back to the video, shooting arrows in the sky and then, you know, they never come down. Okay, interesting. Shooting arrows at rocks, and then, you know, in Elder Scrolls, they bounce off. Shooting it in wood, it sticks. And then in Avowed, I guess, arrows go into rocks and they stay. They go into wood and they stay. It doesn't matter what you shoot the arrows at, they just stick. I'm gonna just be honest with you. None of this stuff means anything to me. Nothing at all. I could care less. Even, you know, I was being generous about, you know, the other section where I'm like, okay, you know, that's kind of interesting, but I don't care if the NPCs don't fight back, really. I really don't care about any of this stuff. Is this what defines an Elder Scrolls experience for you? As if you can get a random NPC to fight back? Or that, you know, shooting arrows into the sky and then the arrows never come back? This is what keeps you up at night? I'm like, what about the story? What about the lore? What about combat? What about having compelling characters? These are the things that I care about. I really don't give a damn about if arrows are going to come back down. This does not affect the quality of the game to me. I'm sorry. Now, I actually do have one complaint about the game, and that is the Steelbook Edition. So when you hear Steelbook Edition, you would just assume that this is something that holds the game, right? That has a physical copy of the game. Well, this game is a digital release. Makes no damn sense to me. Like, if you want to do some kind of premium edition to make a little extra cash, then I think they would be better off doing a premium edition, whatever, $20 more, and you add some kind of armor or a couple of skins or something for the characters, and that's it. But making a Steelbook Edition and then it doesn't actually hold a physical copy of the game is wild. Now, as far as performance, I have heard some complaints about it when it initially was released, but I haven't heard any complaints as of lately, so I don't know if this has been patched or whatever. One thing that I do want to remind people is that a year ago, the team did an interview. I want to say it was with Gamertag Radio, and they kind of clipped this segment of the interview because someone on the dev team made a comment that, you know, the sweet spot for them would be 30 frames per second. That's what they were aiming for. I think a lot of people forgot about this interview. But anyways, I'm just saying you shouldn't really be surprised, at least I'm saying in terms of console, you shouldn't be surprised that your 60 frames per second isn't very consistent. Not every game needs to run at 60 frames per second, but I understand some people really get obsessed with it. And I think with some games, it totally, yes, absolutely enhances it. But I mean, It really just depends on what type of game it is. Which brings me to my next point. Combat out of everything is probably the least criticized. There's been a lot of critics that said it's great, and then others that say, well, it's kind of mid. And I think for the most part, I find the combat pretty satisfying. I don't think it's gonna blow you away. I really do like how you have like two sets. Like one set will be like your sword and shield, and then the second set will be like, it could be your magic spells, or it could be your bow and magic spells, or whatever. And you can just switch between these two sets back and forth really quickly. I think that adds a layer to the combat that makes things really interesting, a lot of fun. And in general, when it comes to the combat, when it comes to the leveling system, everything is very streamlined. It's very simple. So I mean, like, if this was your first like RPG that was like in this style, I would say this would be a good starting point because things are very streamlined for this game. The last point I want to discuss is people calling the game mid. I don't think a game this polished deserves to be called mid. Now, in theory, you know, a game being bad or being mid or being good, at the end of the day, it's just our opinions. And I'm going to keep it real with you guys. Do I really care if I like this game and then a bunch of people are saying it's mid or saying it's bad? No, I don't. Like, I'm not some obsidian warrior or fanatic that's gonna try to, you know, speak highly on this game. I'm just a guy that tried the game out and was like, oh, I thought this would be good, and it's good. Now, when a game is poorly optimized for PC and that is your means of playing the game, I'm not going to push back on that. Hey, you know, that's fair criticism. But there are plenty of games that come out every year that are mid. And I don't think this is one of them, honestly. Our standards of what is mid or what is subpar has become very warped over the years. If I were to listen to reviewers in the early 2000s, I would have believed Fatal Frame is mid. Because guess what? It didn't have the greatest reviews, but the series, is amazing. And I mean, if in order for a game to be good, it has to be Grand Theft Auto, it has to be God of War, it has to be Red Dead Redemption, it has to be Baldur's Gate 3, we are in trouble, man. We really are in trouble. In fact, if these are the only games you've played recently, you probably think a lot of games are mid. And I don't know. I don't know how I would feel interacting with a gamer that's the only games they played. But just because a game isn't a masterpiece doesn't mean it's mid. I think the quality in Avowed, as far as the lore, the voice acting, the solid graphics, and the gameplay, make this a very well-rounded game. Maybe not mind-blowing, but far from a mediocre game. And like I said before, I don't have any reason to stick up for this game. I'm really just doing it because I'm like, where is all this coming from, and why are we comparing it to Skyrim? This doesn't make any sense. I would like to hear what you have to say down in the comments. Am I out of my absolute mind for liking this game? Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. I would greatly appreciate that. As always, I appreciate you watching the video to the very end, and I'll see you next time.